Hello and welcome to day 5. So today I'm going to tell you more about ChaQi or the energy of tea and also about how it relates to caffeine. Today we're going to drink a very different tea from the others. So it's a break. It looks like this from the outside and from the inside, this is a part of the break. So this is Shou pour. Shou means cooked. So this is a process that's been developed only in the 70s to make tea age faster. I will tell you more tomorrow. But the reason I'm drinking it today is because its energy is like the much more calming than the other ones. The other ones have both calming and kind of inspiring and energizing energy, but this one is tilted very, very strongly towards the calming. Some people naturally prefer this kind of tea, some people prefer this kind of tea later on during the day. In any case, what we can certainly say is that it's pretty different from the other ones. Okay, so I got my usual, roughly 5 grams. This is Shou pour, so I'm definitely gonna rinse this. It's not only Shou, but it's also aged, so it's from the 1980s, older than me. As it turns out, this one was not, there's no big chunks in it, so I can actually do a relatively quick steep. I don't need to wait a long time to rinse it. Okay. And then I can immediately have my first one. So you can see that the leaves of this look, particularly when they're wet, they look massively different from the other ones. They're black. The smells are very different. They're much more earthy than, compared to the greenish pour of before. These are much, much more earthy. Let's throw away my wash. So people often talk about ChaQi as if either it doesn't exist or if it's only one thing. So I want to propose 4 different dimensions over which we can talk about ChaQi. The first one is maybe the easiest one to talk about it, which is how calming a tea is. So I've been drinking it for a while. Do I feel calm or not, or to which extent? Another one is how intense a tea is. Now, intense, you could say it as, for example, how different does your body feel like? Like after you drank some of it, does your body feel very different? Do you feel it's kind of some energy? And here I need to stress, this is very different from caffeine. So although this kind of tea has some caffeine still, the normal curve of caffeine is this kind of thing, particularly for people that are sensitive to it, such as I am. While the curve of caffeine you're going to find in tea of this quality, pour of this quality, it's much more ground and smooth. So to be clear, if I drink this late at night, I'm really sensitive to caffeine. If I drink this late at night, it's still going to keep me up. But I'm not going to get the anxiety and jitteriness that I would normally get from coffee or even from tea in a tea bag. And generally speaking, the older tea is, the more calming it is. And we don't know exactly, but it seems like caffeine does break down with age. Or certainly something happens where an older tea and the Shou is more calming than a younger tea, and a Shang is. Shang is raw pour, so Shang is the tea we've been drinking up until now. Let me just try this. Yeah, it's this is kind of the natural end of how even old tea will eventually age. Similar to anyway. Yeah, much darker, earthier, grounding power. Color will look something like this. Your other tea will not have looked like this unless you really, really steeped it really hard. The other 2 dimensions are how comfortable a tea is. And here the difference with caffeine again is really, really emphasized. So yes, it might give you some energy that might even be kind of like ecstatic and happy and jumpy, but is there any anxiety or jitteriness with it? Often generally good tea will not have this. Even though it's got the energy, it doesn't have the kind of feeling of wiredness. And finally, there is depth, or a way of measuring depth is, for example, how long do you feel like staying in this session? Do you lose interest after a few cups, or do you feel like staying there? Or perhaps if you do like writing or you have some ideas, what's the quality and the depth of these ideas? This is very, very good tea of measuring, like a very good way of measuring the depth of tea. Now, in general, ChaQi is quite subtle, so some people don't feel it consciously. That's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that, and it's just for some people they're not gonna feel consciously. However, I'm gonna suggest that if you still feel like sitting with tea for an hour and your life seems improved by it just because you spent some time in stillness, the tea is still doing something to you, even though you might not consciously realize. And finally, if you need to drink tea later in the day and you find that tea keeps you up, tea of this age is just much better. It still has some caffeine, but it's not gonna. For some people, can just drink it before going to bed, and some others can drink it later in the day, and it's completely fine. Nice. Okay, this was your class for today. I'll see you tomorrow.